Welcome back to Out of the Blue, the podcast, where real people share extraordinary stories of resilience, creativity, and transformation. I'm your host, Vernon West, joined today by my son and co host, Vernon West III, the brilliant musician and designer behind our show's theme song and logo. Today's guest has lived a life steeped in music. From the soul of Detroit to the bright lights of Hollywood, Steve Thoma is a classically trained pianist, arranger, composer, and conductor whose career has taken him from childhood recitals to performing alongside legends like Doc Severinsen, Andy Gibb, Glenn Frey, Joe Cocker, Fleetwood Mac, and Robin Williams, just to name a few. By age 13, Steve had already earned a full music scholarship. By 16, he was touring the country as musical director for the Young Americans. And by his 20s, he was leading the band for the Tonight Show icon Doc Severinsen, conducting 60 musicians a night and soaking up a masterclass in musical excellence. But what really makes Steve's story out of the blue isn't just the resume, it's his evolution. He's learned that mastery isn't just about notes and charts, but about humility, listening, and the magic that happens when you let the music lead. As he puts it, his journey began with humiliation and perspiration, but ultimately led to inspiration. And that's the heart of what we celebrate here on Out of the Blue. So let's dive into the rhythm, the stories, and the wisdom of a life lived in groove and gratitude. Good afternoon, Steve, and welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast.
Thank you, Vernon. I think I'm going to name my next album Groove and Gratitude.
Hey, all right. This sounds good to me. It's a pretty good name. But
Works.
yeah, it works.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always fun to sit and talk about me.
Well, you get to do that this whole episode. It's all about Steve. And you know what? It's really going
I
to be.
love what you guys are doing, presenting these stories of people that have, like most folks on the planet, facing situations that, we've all faced situations that we felt we were in a real dilemma where there didn't seem to be a possible great outcome from it. But I love that you guys are focusing on that and giving people the chance to tell their story about how their resilience carried them through and the tools they've utilized. And it doesn't always work out on the first try or the 14th,
But I think even when it doesn't work out right away, it seems like it will have an impact later because we do have to embrace the dark side of life if we want to get to the light. You have to learn from it, and I think that's what Out of the Blue is.
Along those lines, we have to not be afraid to find out the dark side of ourselves.
Exactly.
Take the deep dive and not be afraid to hear the truth about ourselves.
Right.
Mhm.
There's so much of a big part of this learning procedure. But anyway, where do we start, Steve? You've got an unbelievably incredible resume and life. But it all started when you were like 3, tinkling away in the piano, or something 5?
Yeah, I was raised by my grandparents outside of Detroit, and my grandmother was a pianist, and she had played in what were used to be called speakeasies during Prohibition, and she was a great stride piano player. She had big, long fingers, and she was very musical and very joyful, and there was a piano in the house, and I would hear her play, and I said, I want to play too. And anyway, when I was about 6, she got a book of duets, and we started playing duets together. I was finally, she put me in a piano class rather than attempting to teach me on her own. And it was in Detroit, so I don't know how I wound up in this class. It was me and 13 black kids, African-American kids. So I was the odd man out, but I had a crush on one of the girls. Her name was Robin, and she always had her hair in pigtails, and I thought that was super special. So I was more interested in getting a kiss on Robin than playing piano, but I did pay attention.
John Lennon, I think, said when someone like Dick Cavett asked him, "So why did you do music?" He says, "To get a little bit extra, Dave. What else?" You know.
Yeah, any musician that tells you otherwise is not looked at the dark truth within himself yet.
That's
Uh,
so true.
Even in high school,
Right,
for
Bourbon?
me, my best friend and I started playing music, and our slogan was "Why? Because girls love it." Like it was really just that simple.
Oh, it's very, I mean, girls were talking to me, walking up to me, talking to me. I didn't have to initiate conversations. And I would have been terrified if I had to do that on my own, but I was the piano player for all the choirs, and I was always the one playing, you know.
Yeah, and it speaks to something else about how music becomes a voice for musicians to express themselves and be confident, like, you know.
I think when we're playing our instrument and when we're in our groove, as Brendan mentioned earlier, that's when we're most ourselves. That's when I feel most me. And that was what people seem to respond to when the bands I put together would perform. The one of the draws would be that they were intrigued by what was going on between the musicians, which was clearly visible in the combos that I put together. I was always looking for guys that really had a soulful thing, and that's what was obvious to me right away. Some musicians don't have it. They may be a competent guitar player or a competent horn player, but they don't have that other thing that it's like Ray Charles when they asked him what was soul, he said, "Well, if I got to explain it to you, you won't understand." There's
Perfect.
just this thing that certain people have when it comes to music that translates and permeates the masses. They don't even know what they're digging about it, but they know they dig it. And they'll do crazy stuff to hear it, you know,
Yeah.
standing in lines, camping out on the sidewalk to get tickets for front. I mean, you know, we've seen
Oh
fans
yeah.
do crazy stuff behind their love for music and their love for the artist. So, anyway, I feel most myself when I'm communicating through the piano.
So you got this. You go into that class in Detroit, and then what happened next?
And then when I was five, a little over five, my grandparents decided to move to California. They had a friend that had moved here and he really liked it. He had a job opportunity for my grandfather, who was a big equipment operator, what's called an operating engineer. And prior to that, he'd been one of the original Teamsters in Detroit that helped form that union, along with Jimmy Hoffa and Frank Fitzsimmons. So there were three celebrities in our house: John Kennedy, Pope Paul the 23rd, and Jimmy Hoffa. So those were like the dudes that I grew up hearing about, and how, you know, how instrumental they were and influential they were in the world. And Jimmy Hoffa, though, fell out of favor because when I was about maybe 10 or 11, my grandfather started trash talking him because he had turned into all the things that he was fighting, you
Right,
know.
right. I know the
So
story. I know
anyway,
the story. But so then after
we
that,
moved to California. They put me in Catholic school. We moved here in a bus. That's what I wanted to tell you. That's why I brought up the Teamster thing. My grandfather bought a bus, tore out all the seats except for the first two benches, and that was our moving van. I mean, it was like worse than the Beverly Hillbillies. And they threw all their we threw all our stuff in that bus. My grandfather drove the bus, and I rode with him. And my grandmother drove a 1956 Cadillac that they had purchased and brought along. And her my grandfather's mother, who was in her 80s and, you know, senile, she rode with my grandmother for the drive from Detroit. So that was an arduous journey, to say the least.
but what a
But we
wonderful
made it.
one. And seriously, that sounds wonderful. Honest to God, come and listen to my story about.
Right,
There's a
exactly.
song there somewhere.
So we made the trip here. My grandfather had the bus sold to a bus company
What a
when
jam!
we
Oh
got here. So
wow!
it was, I mean, he was a smart guy.
What a
He
smart
was
dude.
industrious. Anyway, they enrolled me right away. I went to kindergarten at a public school, which was a good experience. I liked school. I liked learning, and then they put me in Catholic school, and that's really where my music education began in earnest, because they had a piano teacher on staff at the school. They gave her a classroom and had two pianos in it, and you could actually leave. You could take lessons after school, or if she had too many students, you could actually leave class and go take a piano lesson.
Wow, I gotta love it. That's pretty
So I
fun.
tell people I started playing when I was 3, but I didn't get serious about it until I was 7. And I got serious about it with Mrs. Campbell, who was probably 5'11". Another woman, big long fingers.
Yep.
She would grab 47 notes at once.
Yeah.
She was a
Like,
very dynamic player.
my aunt was like that.
Yeah.
She was the one with the upright that played all the honky tonks, and she did a lot of stuff. And
Right.
when we would go over her house, she would just play all day long, and I would get on the piano with her. But no, I wasn't so fortunate as to have her get me lessons. That would have been wonderful. But one of my earliest pictures, I'll show it to you sometime, is me sitting at a little baby grand, like a real baby piano, and I got a little tie, and there's a candelabra on the piano, because they really loved me they wanted me to play piano, but I ended up drifting off to trumpet. But go ahead, And then I got serious, and I was 7
Yeah, I
too.
mean, and what was cool about Mrs. Campbell is that there were 2 things cool about her. I've discovered that her husband was the organist at the church.
Whoa.
So across the street from my elementary school, which was grades 1 through 8, was our church, and next to that was the rectory where all the priests lived. And back then there were multiple priests in our parish, and Theodore Campbell, her husband, was the church organist. So I started taking lessons from him, and right after I started taking organ lessons from him and piano from her, they called my grandparents and they said, we're not going to charge anymore for Stephen. They called me Stephen, which I legally changed my name to Steve, partially because of that. They said, we're not going to charge for Stephen's lessons. And my grandmother thought that I was getting fired as a student.
Oh, God.
She goes, well, what did he do wrong? She goes, no, you didn't do anything wrong. We aren't going to charge you because he's so motivated and so talented. We're not going to charge.
Well, that's beautiful.
We wish we had 10 more like him that practice and show up prepared.
That's really
so good. And that I credit my grandfather for teaching me how to pay attention, because he was always showing me how to fix stuff. And we changed transmissions and clutches. We were always working on our old beat up cars, but he taught me how to pay attention, because he used to say, I'm going to show you how to do this one time. And he wasn't kidding.
Yeah, you got to pay attention when they say that, right?
Right. So anyway, that was a great relationship with me and Mrs. Campbell and Mr. Campbell. And then I started subbing for him when I was about 10, playing funerals and weddings. And also, this was in the 60s, so it was like the beginning of guitar masses. That was a good experience for me, taking lessons from them. And I studied with them, and that led me down the path of being pretty serious about music.
I mean, that's a foundation, man. That's a beautiful foundation. So go ahead, more.
Well, and I enrolled in high school, and I was very torn about high school, because there was a high school that had this incredible vocational program where they teach you drafting and engineering and auto mechanics, but it was about 30 miles away, which in LA traffic even back then was a nightmare. Anyway, I went to an invitation day there to check it out, and I was really excited to go learn all these things, mechanics and drafting and all of that. But it was an all boys school, and all of the Catholic high schools except for 2 were all boys or all girls. And there was a high school in Burbank that was a co-ed Catholic high school, but the drawback was it was the poorest school in the whole diocese. It was a very, very poor school. They did not have, great basketball and football teams or baseball teams. They didn't have a great rep in that way, but they had a really good reputation in terms of their academics. And the kicker for me was there was another family, the Enciso family. They had 5 or 6 kids, and 2 of their kids, I think they were twins or within a year of each other, they were going to school there, so I had a ride.
Oh,
So I think that's why I wound up going there. And the very first day of school, they give you your classes when you show up that first day back then. And one of the classes was music, like music appreciation.
Right.
So I show up for the class, and I'm sitting in the back because I'm thinking, what do I need to learn about music appreciation?
Right.
So I'm thinking this is going to be an easy A for me. And the teacher said, the teacher was a young, good-looking, and very dynamic woman named Suzanne Keithley. And I'll tell you more about her later, but she asked anybody, does anybody play an instrument in here? And, you know, about 15 hands went up out of about 40 kids, 30 kids. And she goes, oh, great. What do you play? Everybody play guitar or drums. Everybody. I was the last guy because I was in the. She goes, what are you playing? I said, piano. And she goes, oh, really? What kind of music do you play? And I said, oh, you know, Bach, Chopin, Mozart, Haydn, Tchaikovsky. She's like, really? I said, yeah. And she goes, so you read music? I said, yeah, I didn't know any other way to make music other than reading it at that moment, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I read music. She goes, can you come to my office after class today? And I said, sure. So I go to her office, which is like a closet. And it was so small that they said, they told her you can either have a desk or a piano, a spinet piano. She goes, I need the piano. So there was a piano. There was literally room for me and her sitting next to me. That was her office. Anyway, I played all the stuff she put in front of me, and she's like, okay, I'm going to offer you a scholarship to this school. The tuition is, I don't know what it was like. I think it was $1,200 a year. You're not going to have to pay any tuition, but you have to play piano for the choir. I have 2 choirs. I have mixed chorus, and then I have another choir, which was like for the more capable singers. It's a smaller ensemble. And she goes, and we do a musical once a year. And I'm like, okay, sure. I had no idea. My grandparents were greatly relieved because that $1,200 a year was a big deal to them.
Absolutely a lot of money.
So Suzanne was a huge inspiration in my life. She taught me how to do so much. She taught me how to produce shows. She taught me how to produce events. She taught me how to accompany singers. I mean, a whole new world opened up for me because I was like a little classical nerd at that point. And what's really weird is that a couple of years prior to going to high school, I competed in this LA Diocese piano competition. They went to a lot of the schools. Any school that had piano in their curriculum got to participate in this competition, and they sent 3 nuns to adjudicate all of the musicians. And I won this contest for this entire Archdiocese of Los Angeles. And the quirky part was one of the nuns came up to me and said, she goes, listen, you are special, and you keep playing because the girls are going to really want to hang out with you. And I looked at her. She was really old, like maybe 30. She's telling this 10-year-old kid this, right? And I'm looking at her like, what? So, but it made my high school experience super enjoyable because I think mainly because everybody knew me because there was all the people singing, but one musician. We didn't have the budget for anything else. And speaking of budget, I wanted to tell you this. When Suzanne offered me that scholarship, she didn't have the authority to do that. She had to go to the principal, who was about 4'8" and a friggin' tornado, this nun was. I got to be really close with her, but she scared everybody. And she literally wasn't even 5 feet tall. Suzanne went to her sister, Catherine, and said, listen, I found this piano player. This guy, I've been praying for this. And God put this kid in my class, and the freaking kid can play anything. I need you to pay for his tuition. She's like, we're not going to pay for his tuition. She goes, well, then I quit.
Wow.
And so whatever happened after that, she made it work. And I got a scholarship for all 4 years that I was there. So anyway, that was a great experience. It introduced me to playing popular music, which was a totally different vibe and a totally different set of skills. It taught me how to accompany singers because we also had a lot of soloists that would perform during those shows. And I learned I grew up playing the melodies for songs, you know what I mean? Like, I was the lead voice in the band, so I'd play the melody. But I had to stay away from the melody when I was accompanying singers. And I started listening to people like Burt Bacharach, and Frank Sinatra was a great jazz pianist here in LA. He accompanied a lot of great singers like Sarah Vaughan, and I listened to those records about how these guys accompany a singer. I listened to a lot of Sinatra records because a lot of his stuff had just, calla voce, piano and voice, just. So I started studying that. I became aware, there's other functions that you can have as a musician. I started learning that musician is not just ripping through Bach, inventions and fugues or Chopin waltzes. There's a whole nother world out there. And
Yeah, it's
she
kind of
turned me
like
on to that. Plus, she
kind of
used to
kind of
taught
like
me how to put.
being like a painter in a way, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah, different. What?
contributing.
Yeah, what are you painting with oils? Or are you painting with crayons? Or are you painting with pencils? Or are you painting with charcoal?
Yeah, when you're back in a singer, you learn to lay out, like you
Yeah,
said, not hit the melodies. Then you learn
yeah,
how to complement them. That's a
right,
cool, what an education that
right.
must have been.
Sometimes you're leading them. Sometimes they're leading you. And then that also helped me when I got my first job conducting because again, I knew how to pay attention. I knew how to listen. I knew how to kind of think about where the singer was going. And many years later, when I got introduced to Frank Sinatra, I never got to work with him, but I got to hang out with him and went to many of his shows in Las Vegas because I was working there with Doc at the time. And everybody knew me because I was only 22 and I was like the young gun. So everybody knew who I was, and I got access to a lot of shows for no charge. Just they let me in to watch and meet the artists. But Sinatra was the most unpredictable singer I ever saw. But
Really.
his piano player, Bill, I can't remember his name now. He's with him forever. Anyway, Bill was genius at Bill Miller.
Bill Miller.
Bill Miller was his a conductor, musical director, and that's the job I wanted. I wanted Bill Miller's job. So that's what I started studying. I listened to those records. I watched every Sinatra TV special that he ever had, which was very educational. And I'm glad I got to be around that era of not only music, but also Vegas,
Right.
because that's when the mob was still running it and entertainers were treated like royalty. It was a beautiful time to be a musician or an entertainer.
Wow.
So I got exposed to that very young and got in that circle of professionals, and it was a great time. After high school, I left high school to do that tour with the Young Americans, which was a tour of one-nighters, all like community concerts. Like when people would buy season tickets, they'd get Vicki Lawrence one night, and a month later they'd get the Young Americans, and after that they'd get Robert Goulet. They'd get these different entertainers come through for their season.
Did they tour like high schools and stuff?
No, they toured community concerts.
Community
So,
concert? Because I think I saw something called the Young Americans.
well,
It was
when
it
I
was at a
joined the
concert,
group,
but we were all brought in from different schools and filled an
right,
auditorium.
right. So I joined that group in 1972. Well, I got to tell you that story, how that happened. The Young Americans, I think it was 1968. Somebody did a documentary about them. It was started in Michigan by a little guy named Milton Anderson. He was about 5 feet tall, but a musical genius and a great producer. I learned a lot from Milton. But they when the documentary won the Academy Award for Best Documentary, that kind of catapulted them into the public consciousnness. And they did, like the Merv Griffin show, and they did Mike Douglas and all that stuff. And
What was
so
it
they
like?
started.
What kind of show
What's
was
that?
it? What kind of show was it like? I mean,
It was pretty much. I used to call it flag waving. It was very patriotic. There was always like a patriotic section. Like the show that I did with them was we had a medley from 76 trombones. What show is that?
right. The Music Man.
Music Man. Yeah, sorry. We did a medley from that. We did a medley from Oklahoma. We did a medley from something else. But the opening was genius. Milton just had one singer walk out and start singing a cappella, just in what they used to call a Sinatra spot, the overhead spot.
Yep.
And then another singer would walk out and start singing two-part harmony. And then the 30 singers and dancers wound up coming out onto the stage during that opening number. And that audience was mesmerized.
I bet.
Because there was very little going on. It was so beautifully simple and elegant.
I don't think this is an accident, man. I definitely saw the Young Americans in 1972. Did you come to Boston area? Because I don't know.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I
I
saw you
always play
guys.
Boston.
Well, let me tell
Or
you,
Worcester.
when I saw the Young Americans, I was so jealous because
Oh, wow.
I was in my band days. I just started my band, and I was
Uh-huh.
playing around New England high schools, leaving every weekend to do the road. And when I
Cool.
came to see this show, I said, "Oh, what's this going to be crappy?" I figured it's going to be hokey or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is pro. This is really well done."
Yeah.
And the talent was really great.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was done well. The lighting,
Yeah.
everything. They did a great job.
Yeah, it was the lighting director was a rock guy, and this is also in the context of the concert business. It was very early in the whole concept of
Right, right.
concerts and done with real concert sound and concert lighting. But the caliber of musicianship and performance ability in that group was extremely high.
Yeah,
It was a 6-piece band. We played in the pit. No, we played upstage and we played behind a scrim.
right.
But there were a few numbers in the show where they had a Revox reel-to-reel with strings and horns. And there was a conductor in the pit with a penlight flashlight giving me the count off. And I had to make sure that band stayed in line with that tape recorder.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So fortunately, we never had a disaster. And that band was super competent. I mean, the music, first of all, I have to tell you this. I was 16 years old when I did that tour. Everybody else in that group was 18 and older, because what they did was to find members. Like I said, Milton started the group in Michigan, but he opened an LA office when they won the Academy Award because he knew that he wanted to monetize the group. So he started an LA company. They had their Michigan company, which performed at Interlochen every summer. That was kind of the feather in their cap. And then they came to LA and had a company here. So to get the LA company, you had to hold auditions. What they did for their touring company was they sent a postcard to every high school in the United States inviting them to send 2 singers. So thousands of singers made their way to Los Angeles to audition for the Young Americans.
Oh boy.
To sing and dance for free.
Wow.
And 2 girls from my high school in choir that I grew up with in high school decided they wanted to audition for it. And they asked me if I would come play for their audition. I go, sure. So, and it was over on the west side of Los Angeles, which for us back then, that was like a big deal. Oh, we're going over to the west side.
Okay.
So we go over to the west side of Culver City to this warehouse, and this warehouse was probably 6,000 or 7,000 square feet of just open space, and there was a piano in there. And I played for them, and they each did 2 songs. And then this little guy said, "Thank you very much." And we all get up to walk out, and he goes, "Hang on, Mr. Piano Player, can you wait a minute?" Like, okay. He goes, "Do you read music?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What kind of music do you read?" "Bach, Chopin, Mozart." It's like, okay, play me, can you play me Boogie Woogie? So
Yep.
I start rattling out some Boogie Woogie thing.
The old boogie woogie, yeah.
Yeah, he says, "Okay, can you play a waltz?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I know all the Chopin waltz." He goes, "No, don't play any Chopin, just play me a waltz." So I played Charade. Whoa, he goes, "I didn't say a jazz waltz." I go, "Oh, I don't know. I like the jazz waltz." He goes,
Well.
"Okay." So he rattled off a couple other styles, and he goes, "Do you want a gig?" And I'm like, I didn't even know what a gig was. I'm
Right.
like, "What's a gig?"
That's a word.
He says, "Well, I think you, oh," and he said, have you ever played with other musicians?" And I go, "Yeah, I got a band. It's a 5-piece band, drums, bass, guitar, and 2 trumpets." And I said, "I play trumpet too." And he goes, "Oh, okay. That's your band?" I go, "Yeah, I started it when I was 12. And he's like, "Okay." So he goes, "So I think you might be the right guy to be our band leader." I'm like, "Sounds great. How much does a gig pay?"
Now
And he
that's
says,
what I call out of the blue, man. That's a
totally.
right,
I mean,
totally out
I
of the
went
blue.
there doing a favor,
Right.
right? He goes, $20 a week. And
That's not a lot of money, but
I go, "That doesn't buy a lot." He goes, "Well, really all you need to buy is toothpaste." He goes,
Oh,
"What?"
right.
He goes, "Well, we pay for everything else." So I said, "Okay, all right, well, let me talk to my grandparents." "Your grandparents? What do they have to do with it?" So, "Well, that's who I live with." He's like, "Tell me about that." I'm like, "That's a long story." So he goes, "All right, well," he goes, "Stick around, go to the front office, talk to so-and-so, give him your info." So that's what led to that. And that band turned out to be, I'm still in touch with 2 people from that, or 1 person from that outfit, from that band, who happened to be Al Viola's son. Al Viola was a legendary jazz guitarist who
I know
played
that
with,
name. Of course I know Alveola.
so Page Cavanaugh, he was in the Page Cavanaugh trio originally, and then from there he went and was in Sinatra's band for about 40 years. And he
Wow.
played on Strangers in the Night, and he also played on 1,000 movie soundtracks. He was an A-Call studio guy. He played on the Godfather soundtrack and played like all the mandolin. And
What a
anyway,
wow,
brilliant
that's
guy. And he
amazing.
became a mentor to me also. Like out of the blue, I meet his son. I meet Al, and Al sees, okay, here's a kid who's on the ball. He's going to save my son, because his son was already a heavy
Oh
drinker
yeah, I
at
was already
18.
had it. All right.
And I was like, I wanted nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. I had ambition, man. I wasn't going to let anything get in the way of that. And I'd heard all these horror stories about musicians who died from drug overdoses or from alcoholism, or they got shot by somebody's husband. I'm like, I'm not going down that path. So Al saw in me somebody that, you know, could help his son get on track. So unfortunately, Jeff, his son played with me for a couple of years as I started getting these little musical director gigs in LA. But he went on to be a movie extra and went on to drink himself into a really bad place, but he got clean and sober, and he's been clean and sober forever now.
That's beautiful.
But we're still friends. We're golf partners. We play golf all the time.
Oh wow.
And he's in Spain right now. He called me from Spain. He's in Spain competing in the world Ironman competition. He's a triathlete. Like,
Wow.
the guy's a beast.
Oh, bet.
And he's in incredible shape. He's in better shape than we were at 18. And he's been competing all over the world. So that's an exciting thing.
Friggin' beautiful.
Yeah. So we stayed in touch. His dad was really beautiful and kind to me and introduced me to Sinatra and told everybody about, you got to check out this kid, Thoma. He's
How was
amazing.
Frank? I don't know anybody that met Frank Sinatra. How was he like? What was he like?
He's like, hey kid, I've been hearing about you. What was your favorite song tonight? When he did a set, I went to his show and I go, oh, your version of Yesterday. The
That
Beatles
makes sense,
was
right?
amazing. And he also did All by Myself.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Sing the shit out of it.
Oh boy.
Incredible orchestration. I mean, just.
Oh wow, that must have been phenomenal.
Yeah, he did a lot of modern tunes in his show then. Like he didn't want to be. He was always up to date. I mean,
All by myself. The guy from the Raspberries.
Eric
Carmen.
Yeah.
I saw the Raspberries in the little club when I was
cool.
still in my team, playing my bands. We went and saw them, and they blew me the frick away.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how good they were. They would.
Well, his version of those tunes was something else.
And I can imagine that because that's an awesome song for a good vocalist, you know. And it's Frank's phrasing, I'm sure.
His phrasing is totally unique.
Yeah, and it's untouchable. It's like he's the best at it. So keep going. You're getting I want to hear your story when things may have changed. You met the face of your dark side one day, I bet. Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Vernon West III, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org.